Here's the thing, guys. We can't have this argument both ways. I mean, we can argue from both directions, but we can't take one side that covers both sides. Here's what I mean here specifically. The big push that the Steelers are making, very clearly, plainly, and by the way, verbalized by management, is to get to the Super Bowl. Again, that's the goal. It's the goal every year. And I've got no issue with that. If you go into a camp setting, whether it's OTAs, mini camp, the main camp in Latrobe, it's admirable that you want everybody focused, that you want everybody pursuing a common thing. In the NFL, life is technically 17 weeks long. You might as well put everything that you have into those 17 weeks. There's no, we'll get them next year, or we're really building toward this or that. So on one hand, while I'm tempted to say, hey, why are you this and that, and it's not a Super Bowl year, and there's no way you should even be thinking about that or talking about that, or certainly not making moves toward that. Football's a tough sport. You do want everybody rowing in the same direction. And that direction should be winning as many of your games as is necessary to get into the playoffs, winning as many playoff games as you can. But I'm going to tell you that if there's anything that I like the most about this offseason to date, it's not only picking up traces of Omar Khan doing things toward the future, it's also watching it unfold. If he says, yeah, we're looking at quarterbacks and we're thinking about, building up assets and accumulating, volume of draft picks for 2026, everybody here just kind of tunes out. What's he even talking about? If George Pickens gets traded for a third round pick, we go bananas. I didn't. You did, for the most part. That's nothing. That's a hole at wide receiver. How can you do that? He's so fantastic. He's so whatever. Now you got to go get a WR2. Okay. But if the trading of Pickens contributes even modestly toward the ultimate acquisition of your franchise quarterback, not so bad then, is it? And it won't be seen as so bad. It'll be seen as, boy, they really put some thought into this one. They didn't just push all their chips to the middle of the table and do it year after year after year after year without even thinking about anything else. It's now been a half a decade. Might not seem like it, but it has, since Ben Roethlisberger was quarterbacking this team. It's due. Getting that next guy. It's due. Didn't happen with Kenny Pickett. They took the right approach. They didn't take the right player, meaning they took the right approach in that mindset. They wanted to have a quarterback. You shouldn't have done it in that class. Okay. But this, right now, this has to be time to make sure that you're taking care of the future. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more with Chris Halleck when he joins us here after this little break.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
Welcome back to the show. Hi, Chris.
Hey, how are you?
What's going on over there?
Oh, nothing much. Just enjoyed some hockey over the weekend and got done doing a whole bunch of football research yesterday on Arthur Smith and the offense, and I feel really nerded out on football right now. Like really, really nerded out on football.
I, on the other hand, was focused on a different sport over the weekend. I was covering the Pirates and Phillies series over in Philadelphia. 3 games. They were all losses. Yesterday was a remarkable loss, and that Paul Skeens was just brilliant. I mean, even by his standards. And naturally, he loses, and the team loses 1-0. That's tough to watch, man.
It's so bad.
And they're tough to be around. The players feel like they're kind of keeping their heads above water. Some of them aren't necessarily. Some of them are really, really struggling, both physically and mentally. Don Kelly has his work cut out for him, to say the least.
Definitely.
It's a tough thing. But if I look like a train wreck today or sound like a train wreck, that's because I was doing the whole make it home overnight on the Turnpike.
Yeah.
Gig.
We've done those.
Yeah. The trips back from Baltimore and Cincinnati and Cleveland, those overnight ones.
Should we tell the story about the one in Cincinnati on the way back from Cincinnati?
Let's have everyone hear it.
So we are driving back on the typical interstate highways. And for some reason, my Google Maps is like, no, you need to go a different way. And so
I hate this story.
And so we exited.
This was coming back on 70 or something, right?
Yeah.
Through Ohio.
Yeah. And we get on this road that is just winding and winding and winding. And we look at this, and it's supposed to be like another 20 miles of this. And DK is just like, we're not doing this. We're not doing this. And so we figured out a way. We Google mapped ourselves back to the highway, but it definitely added on at least another 20 to 30 minutes of drive time, if not more.
And another 20, 30 levels of nausea and everything else driving like this.
It was crazy. Late at night, it was not a fun time.
Chad says that Philly is a dump. Chad has not been to Philadelphia. People say stuff like that. They say because they're angry about sports or whatever. Philadelphia's not a dump. Philadelphia's a really nice city. I don't know where stuff like that comes from. I mean, I'll be the first one to pounce on the Flyers or their fans or whatever. Okay, it's a different species of human or subhuman altogether. But man, DV points out that the poop games are gone as well. They actually, I don't know if they showed any of it here, but the NBC Sports Philadelphia had for the first of the Pirates Phillies game, they had a tribute to the poop score bug. If you don't know what that is, it was when the Pirates and the Phillies would play. They would have the Phillies logo over here, they would have the Pirates logo over here, and the game starts with 0-0. So this naturally went viral. It was up for about 4 years on their broadcasts.
Yep.
So finally, they changed the way the thing works so that it didn't say poop for 3 or 4 innings. Now, yesterday's game, having been a 1-0 result, would have been a classic poop game because the Phillies didn't score until the 5th inning. You had 4 full innings of poop. The boss is enjoying this story. She had not heard this one before.
She is really enjoying it.
Andrew says that I've never been to Philly. Most of us, dude, I spent a lot of time in Philadelphia. If you think it's a dump, just means you haven't been there. That's all there is to it. William asks, no, it's not. It's Philly. My wife spent the weekend there as well. She found some of the greatest.
I'm sure it has dump response.
Neighborhoods, festivals, and everything. You're just
Old city is unbelievable.
You're saying stuff. It's like when people talk about downtown Pittsburgh and they get negative. Like, come on down and take a look. You know. William says, "Hey, DK and Chris, what backs on backers matchup are you guys excited to see at training camp?" I know which one Chris wants to see.
Kaleb Johnson versus anybody.
Yep, that's the one.
Yep, Kaleb Johnson versus anybody, because that is the one thing that he wants to work on more than anything else heading into the season. It's the thing that he does need to work on more than anything else heading into the season. And so I don't care who he's facing, whether it is Patrick Queen or Cole Holcomb or Malik Harrison. I don't care. I just want to see him and how he does up against every single linebacker possible.
I'm going to throw in Holcomb since you brought him up. I'm going to say Holcomb versus anyone because I want to see that me. I mean, I'm not going to be that guy who's going to wag a finger about somebody's health when he's worked that hard to come back, and he has. Okay, he didn't need to come back at all.
Yep.
Let's be really plain about that. He'd made himself a nice living. He could have gone on with whatever else, get himself healthy, but get himself healthy for the purposes of just having a nice life.
Right.
No. He put everything that he's got into coming all the way back into NFL shape.
Yeah.
Now, you want to talk about somebody who's going to be motivated in that specific set of drills to show, hey, I'm not here as some sort of pity party. I'm here to help the Steelers win football games. And by the way, I'm here to also possibly knock Peyton Wilson off the field.
Hey,
just throwing it out there. Just throwing it out there.
And that's a good problem to have if you're the Steelers. You want to have too many players that are good enough to play only a certain number of positions. And if Cole Holcomb is back to even close to the way he was playing before his injury, and Peyton Wilson does take an actual step forward, and Patrick Queen is Patrick Queen, that's a great problem to have. So, yeah, that's a good question there. That's a good start to the show here. Yeah.
DV says Jay Knudsen to somebody else in here, there will never be another Mario. He's asking who's going to be the next Mario. There's no Mario. Okay. Even Sidney Crosby comes along and he's not Mario.
Yeah.
However, when you're talking about people who are of the stature where they're seen as the best at what they do in their respective sport, there's a very real possibility that the Pirates have that guy. Okay. I like a very real possibility. The number of humans who could have gone into Philadelphia yesterday and did what Paul Skeens did, that's a short list, man.
Yep.
Okay. That's not some run-of-the-mill lineup. Okay. The Phillies, I think, might have the most lethal lineup in baseball. It's like the one that I would least want to face in a single game. Okay. when you're getting into their 7, 8, and 9 in their batting order, they're unbelievable. Okay. I was talking with Andrew McCutcheon about this yesterday. He just said, he said, everyone talks about their top 4, and they should. You know, you got Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber, Trey Turner, and these other guys up there. And then the middle is also strong, and Castellanos and whatever. Then you get to the end, you got Alec Boehm sitting there waiting for you near the, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's a heck of a lineup that they have.
Yeah, it is.
And
Paul
he did that to them. He did that.
He is special, man. He is really, really special, and it's a shame what is happening right now for that baseball club.
By the way, if you happen to see Skeens doing that sad thing at the end of the game on the railing, I did go and ask him about that. He said that don't be. He was like, you know, there's nothing to read into there. We do that a lot when we see scenes on the whether it's the sidelines or on the bench in hockey or whatever. We read a lot into it. All he was doing, he has this ritual after starts where he's thinking about how he pitched, and he goes through certain things in his head. But we look at it, they show it on TV for a few seconds, and we go, oh, he's sad. And also he hates the Pirates and he wished they'd sell the franchise. That's actually not what was happening. So just throwing that one out there.
Yeah.
Jeffrey, who needs to become a member, dkps.net/join is where you can do that, Jeffrey. It's 99 cents a month. We're not going to push you, but we might. Says DK and Chris, what's your definition of a WR2? What abilities and purpose are you looking for? How about this, Chris? Let's twist Jeffrey's question a little bit. What's Arthur's definition of WR2? Because we've seen now between Atlanta and here, and really to an extent in Nashville, he has a different definition of WR2 than most people do, doesn't he?
He does, but I do think if you were to look at the epitome of an Arthur Smith offense, it would be the 2020 Titans offense, which A.J. Brown was the obvious number 1, and then Corey Davis was the number 2. And those are both guys who can play on the outside. I mean, when we're talking traditional receiver roles, your number 1 receiver is your X receiver. That's your guy that lines up away from the strength of the formation. He is pretty much isolated and can win in almost any circumstance. These are your Calvin Johnsons, your Antonio Browns, that type. Your number 2 receiver is typically your Z receiver, which means that is the receiver lined up with the strength of the formation and doesn't necessarily have to always win, but you need to be able to play both outside and also be able to run routes from condensed formations, possibly even in the slot every now and then. That would be your WR2. It would be a guy who is more versatile, a guy who can play a number of different roles for you, but you have to be able to also play on the outside. You cannot just be a slot guy and be a WR2. That is why expecting Ramon Wilson to be that guy is a gigantic question mark, because he was mainly known as a slot guy at Michigan. So if you expect him to turn into that type of a Z receiver at the NFL level, you need to see what he looks like actually playing first for a while before you can actually make that assessment. The closest thing the Steelers have right now is Calvin Austin, who can play on the outside, but how often can he win on the outside, and how expansive is his route tree when playing on the outside?
Yes, and that's where Cal and his next big step will come. I believe that there's going to be more free blades of grass for Cal in 2025 than there's been in the past. Mm-hmm. I believe that DK Metcalf opens up a lot of possibilities. The continuing maturation of Darnell Washington might even be a factor, because we talk about WR2, but in essence, when you get down to catch totals at season's end, your WR2 really is, in a de facto way, Pat Freiermuth. If you throw in a Darnell, you throw in other guys, if you have these bigger bodies out there and the other team has to worry about all of that, and Metcalf can just do his thing. He doesn't need to be, by the way, I see a lot of things about you. Everybody's overrating or not looking at Metcalf's weaknesses in Seattle and so forth. Not true. He just needs to be himself. For this offense to be effective, he doesn't need to be the best receiver in football. Mm-hmm. He just needs to be his own best self. If the Steelers bring in, and this is why I'm pushing this issue, if they bring in a WR2 that fits what Arthur wants, and that doesn't mean Van Jefferson, okay? I don't mean Van Jefferson literally. I mean Van Jefferson, okay? It doesn't need to be that. It doesn't need to be that blocking guy who gets targeted 10 times a year just to humor him, okay?
Right.
It needs to be someone who can actually catch the football and actually make plays.
Yes.
Again, does not need to be some superstar, and it does not need to be also some human highlight thing who happens to be a headache.
Correct.
Okay, and that's why George wasn't needed, much less, or even wanted.
Exactly. And you don't necessarily need to have that guy. You don't need to have while it is certainly attractive for sure, and you would love to be in a situation like the Bengals have with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. It's great to have those two guys who could both be a number one pretty much almost anywhere else in the league, but you don't have to have it. You can have a guy, and I don't think that guy's on this roster right now. I do think the Steelers need to go out and go get somebody, whether it's Romeo Doubs from the Packers, whether it's Christian Kirk from the Texans. And I know there's some noise about Chris Olave with the Saints. I don't know how real that is, but it would not surprise me whatsoever if I were to find out that Omar Khan has at least reached out, because that's what GMs do. They at least make phone calls. How available is this guy? So it wouldn't surprise me if he's already reaching out for some guys like that, but I do think they need to get one, because if you rely on Calvin Austin to be that guy, it's a risk. I would rather have Calvin be your number 3, have that guy to be the first guy on the field to play outside or in the slot at any given moment, and be a guy who can step up if somebody goes down with an injury.
Jorge Rico would like to see more likes. We can get that done. Don't let Jorge down. He makes a really bad, sad face when you do that. Tyreek Hill, possibility? Michael asks.
I don't see why you would do that, to be completely honest. I know that they were interested in him last year, but That was before he signed his extension with the Dolphins, and you just traded away a head case. Why would you acquire another one? That makes to me, that's just you might as well just hold on to Pickens at that point.
Butthole says, how much capital is worth giving up for wide receiver 2 in a 12 personnel run heavy scheme? It doesn't. I don't think it's so much about the capital. I think it's about the player. If you see the player, we've brought up this point many times, and in this case, this is where you go to your coordinator, and everybody's got to be on the same page. But the coordinator is the one that should have the deepest, obviously, feel and vibe for the offense as much as you can without anybody declaring who the quarterback is yet. Also important to note, because that's one of the many bad things about this whole stupid scenario right now, is that you can't really do that. You know, Aaron Rodgers and Mason Rudolph are not the same quarterback. I'm not even talking about accomplishments or anything else. I just mean style. You know, however it is that you go into it, it would be wonderful to have this kind of knowledge. Capital, they have it to give. It doesn't really matter. They have plenty. They have cap space. They have all kinds of extra draft picks. You're not going to have to overpay for this individual. I strongly believe that. I don't think it's a matter of having to sit there and go, oh no, we don't have any assets.
Yeah, no. And okay, even if you have to, let's just say you trade away a 4th round pick for Romeo Doubs. And I'm not saying that's what it would cost. I'm just throwing a complete hypothetical out there. You still have another 4th round pick at least in the comp game, and you still have 3 3rd round picks right now because of what you've done in the comp game and with the George Pickens trade. So you still have plenty, because moving up for a quarterback, when we're talking about that kind of an aggressive move, it's going to require a future first. It just will. Everything else that you could possibly throw in there is just extra capital that you have. So you can trade away one of these picks, knowing what you're going to be getting, and get your second wide receiver, which again is needed in a typical Arthur Smith offense. You need another guy on the outside.
Jorge does in fact show us his sad face. Good for him. I kind of like that. Carol says, how soon do the Steelers have to get a WR2 for it to make sense? I don't think there's a hurry on that one. Do you?
No, there doesn't need to be. And one thing to also, another thing to also take into account too is that every team at this point, I mean, it is May 19th. If teams wait another 13 days, any kind of trade that you can make post June 1 gives you cap relief. Not just for it gives you extra cap relief because you spread out whatever cap hit you keep over this upcoming season and the season after that, instead of taking it all in one season, because teams that trade away are still responsible for any signing bonus money that was paid out, which goes against your cap. And trading away after June 1 is only beneficial when you're this close to that. You might as well just wait. And so that's why I don't think you're going to see any kind of move made before minicamp. Maybe before June 1, I'll put it that way. It wouldn't surprise me if it's second week of OTAs, we still don't see a receiver, that kind of a trade or anything like that.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I do keep saying that I believe that Omar is going to make every attempt to get a WR2. I believe he's going to get one. I just don't know that it's going to be someone who arrives with some, seismic wow factor.
No, it won't
to him. Do you know what I'm saying? I just don't know that. I don't know that you need to do that in the first place. Nope. I think you're almost looking for somebody who's more dutiful than anything else. Someone who, hey, you get this done. Okay. This task.
Yeah.
If you do this task, we're a better football team.
Yep.
Okay. And that was the thing that they couldn't count on with George at all.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, this is an easy player to let go. Now, are you going to miss George's 1 to 2? And I really believe that that's the correct average. 1 to 2 impact plays over the course of a football game. And the answer is yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. To an extent, reminding that they just dropped $150 million into somebody who can make some plays of his own.
Yep.
But you gotta execute.
Yep.
Football is still kind of boring like that. You've got to at the end of the day, when Chris and I go into these locker rooms after the game, if it's after a win, when you ask them why they won, they say, we executed. We had a good game plan. We executed. When you ask them why they lost, well, we didn't execute. I mean, it was a good plan. They had a good plan. We just didn't execute. That's it. That's how that goes. Those aren't just cliches. That's actually the truth.
They're not. And that's the reason why whenever we talk about that 4-game stretch down the at the end of the 2023 season when Mason Rudolph looked so good, the word that I used to describe Mason was competent. It wasn't amazing or special or anything.
That was it. It was, I mean, it's not like he was game. I know everybody hates that term, the game manager, the Trent Dilfer term. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a really dated football reference, but where you say, just go out there and just do the things that are in the playbook.
Yeah.
Okay. But there is a value to that. And that is, by the way, where you develop the other thing that we have not seen from the Steelers offense, other than those handful of games that Mason played since Ben was gone, is rhythm. It used to drive Chris, this guy, completely berserk watching the Russell Wilson offense more than any other, because he'd say, they're just playing for the prayer. That's all they're doing. They're playing for the moon ball. So they would try a couple other things. They didn't work, and they'd go, oh, well, let's just heave it.
I mean, and the thing is that whenever you see the bomb work occasionally, you're kind of like, well, maybe you can play the offense this way. No, you can't. You cannot play offense that way.
No,
it's a low percentage. It's a low percentage offense. You're not going to hit as often as you want to. There is a reason why the Steelers said no thanks almost immediately by the time the season came to an end. They just, it's on DKPittsburghSports.com right now. I dug into the fact that we have not seen Arthur Smith's real offense. One of the main reasons is they did not have the quarterback to execute the way Arthur Smith wants to call an offense. He just doesn't. And that's, it did drive me crazy because I knew the way Arthur wanted to call an offense.
That wasn't it.
And that was not it.
He was doing this. He was holding his nose and sending down that play and just praying like everybody else that when that ball went up, George was going to come down with it, or there'd be a DPI and a flag and whatever else. And that would be, all right, there we go, everybody, first down. Let's go through it again. Yeah. But there was no, unless the Steelers were running, unless there was an opponent that couldn't stop the run, they never, ever, ever had any rhythm. And that applies to, I'm not picking on Russ here. That applies to Russ. That applies for the most part to the Justin Fields offense, and absolutely to everything that preceded that, except for the time when they had Mason. Mason was he just knew the playbook, and he just went, yep, there's that play. I'm going to execute that play. Boring, right? 7 yards, 8 yards. You'll take it. You'll take it. I just those first couple of games in particular. Do you remember those, Chris? Where that's all we were looking at out there. We just went, oh, well, this is why the quarterback gets paid.
Yeah.
That was actually pretty cool. Victory Asher, our good friend, comes in. He is apologizing after dropping $20. Says, hello, everyone. I'm at the gym today. My iPhone won't allow me to do the membership gifting. There are differences between the phones and the base platforms here. We appreciate you, man, over there.
Absolutely.
And now Vic asks, because Justin Fields couldn't run Arthur Smith's offense. I don't think it was that. Arthur, for one thing, really doesn't get too crazy about the term the Arthur Smith offense. Let's okay. He takes at least some verbal pride. Okay, and I'm tweaking him here. Some verbal pride in saying that he'll adjust to anybody. But of course, as Chris is pointing out throughout this program, he has a 2021 Titans kind of feel for what he'd love to do.
And everybody thinks offense in their own ways, and it usually is whatever your influence has been. And Arthur Smith was influenced by Matt LaFleur big time, because Matt LaFleur was the offensive coordinator in Tennessee before he became the head coach of the Packers. Yeah, Matt LaFleur wanted to take Arthur Smith with him as his OC, and Arthur Smith took the offensive coordinator job in Tennessee instead. And and then when you talk about, okay, well, where does Matt LaFleur come from? LaFleur comes straight from the Shanahan tree, directly from the Shanahan tree. And so then in that case, Arthur Smith thinks about a lot of things in a Shanahan-esque. And so when you look at play action concepts, for example, that includes attacking the middle of the field out of play action. It happened all the time in Tennessee with A.J. Brown and Corey Davis and all those guys and Ryan Tannehill hitting those guys. You're not going to have Russell Wilson do that because Russell Wilson doesn't like to throw the middle of the field. Could Justin Fields do that? He didn't prove it this past year, but I think Arthur Smith wanted to at least give him another chance at it.
Mm-hmm.
Can Mason Rudolph do it? I think Mason Rudolph can. And by the way, Aaron Rodgers played for 4 years under Matt LaFleur, so I think those concepts aren't going to be too foreign to him either.
Denny says that Arthur wants a quarterback who won't panic over a pass rush. You have no idea how spot on that assessment is, my friend. He values that, and I'm going to say this out loud. He values that in Mason. He does. He values that in Mason specifically. Now, I say that, and I don't want to keep turning everything into a Mason versus Aaron thing. Okay.
Right.
Aaron Rodgers has his own panic threshold. It's different in the sense that he naturally, reflexively moves the ball quickly. It's not the way Ben was doing in COVID time when Ben was just, oh my God, there's nobody blocking. And it was almost like he was a volleyball setter.
Yeah.
You know, the ball would come to him and it would be gone in the same motion. That's not what I mean when I say that about Aaron Rodgers. He's just naturally going to get it. He's going to get the snap and he's going to move it where it needs to go. Yeah. To me, that limits any offense.
It does to a certain extent, but also Aaron does bring pre-snap abilities that Mason doesn't have, and that just comes from being a 4-time MVP. You've seen everything the league can possibly throw at you. You're one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. I mean,
all that stuff, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even Ben in 2021, even though he was a shade of himself, what he could see before the snap was still immensely valuable. It is going to be, okay, what happens after the snap? How quick do you still want to try to go through structure of first read to second read to check down, or first read to second read to third read to check down, or are you just going to kind of do your own thing? That's, I think, the only question. And the thing is that I don't think what Arthur Smith wants to call, like I said, heavily influenced by Matt LaFleur, and Aaron Rodgers played for 4 years under LaFleur. That's not going to be foreign stuff to Aaron Rodgers. He's going to understand a lot of the things that Arthur Smith is going to want to do. And so I don't think it's going to be a clunky fit. It's definitely not going to be what Russell Wilson was for Arthur.
DV says that he's hoping that Kaleb Johnson's a huge improvement on Najee Harris's 1 yard in a cloud of dust stuff. I don't know that Najee was a cloud of dust guy as much as he was. He's not to, relitigate his career constantly, but I don't think he knows what kind of running back he is. I think that the foundation of his game is to wish that everything around him was better. Okay, he's a complainer, but you could also see that he was a complainer on the field because he would go to execute that term again, a play that wasn't necessarily there, and then it was just done. And that was the difference you'd see whenever the ball would go to Jaylen Warren. The same play wasn't there, so he just went some other way.
Yeah,
it instead of just saying, "Oh well, this one wasn't my fault. Tackle me." Does that make sense? And it fits with his personality in my head too.
No,
but Kaleb Johnson, I mean, is a different story, obviously.
He is, and that is why when you talk about why run this outside zone, wide zone concept, well, because it gives the runner multiple options. It gives you a primary attack point. If that's not there, then you literally read one defender to the next, back across the from the play side back across the formation. You literally read it, and what option is there? And that's whatever the best option is, that's what you take. But you have multiple choices. If Najee's not good at that, which he wasn't, obviously, then you're not going to succeed. Jalen could see that. Jalen could see, primary is not there, but there's my cutback lane. I'm going to hit that. Kaleb Johnson, I looked at the stats yesterday. He ran outside zone or mid zone at Iowa 79% of the time. This is not foreign stuff to him either. There's a reason why they drafted him. It's not just because of Arthur Smith. The Steelers have been an outside zone team even before Arthur Smith got there. But there's a mold that they want at running back, and Kaleb Johnson fits it.
From our live chat, another Chris says, saying that Mike Tomlin doesn't want to throw into the middle is stupid. You don't have to like Tomlin, but that's just not true. You know who would argue with you on this one, Chris?
Who?
Tomlin. Okay. Tomlin would be the first one to tell you that he'd rather avoid the middle of the field. That's in a certain situation, specific situations, and I'm thinking of Atlanta here, and you knew that was going to come to mind, where he identifies the personnel on the other side of the field. He just says, we're not going there.
Yeah.
Okay. Remember, to his bone marrow, Tomlin is a defensive coach. So even when he thinks about offense, he's thinking first about how that offense is being defended. Okay. The middle of the field is fraught with peril. We all know that. When there's an impact safety, or in Atlanta's case, 2 of those guys, it's going to scare him. Okay. We're not assigning this to him because we don't like him. He actually says this.
He does say it. And I do think that there is some warrant to go along with that, dare I say, fear, when Justin Fields is your quarterback, because Justin Fields was just coming off of 3 seasons in which he turned the ball over a zillion times. So you didn't want to just say, hey, first game, first start, go ahead and throw over the middle of the field where those 2 dangerous safeties are all the time. I understand, putting the handcuffs on there, but if your quarterback is Mason Rudolph, who had I think an 81 or 80 passer rating last year, but whenever he was targeting the middle of the field out of play action, his passer rating on a dreadful Titans team was over 120.
Crazy,
last
right?
year. And when you have Aaron
he can
Rodgers,
see it and he can hit it.
right? And when you have Aaron Rodgers, who can do similar things, Aaron Rodgers in the same thing a few years ago, I think it was 2021. He had a 158.1 passer rating in those same type of circumstances, throwing over the middle of the field out of play action. You will have 2 quarterbacks who can do that, who want to do that. That's going to give Mike Tomlin a bit of a different a different mindset than having Justin Fields, who was a turnover machine, and Russell Wilson, who just does not want to throw to that area of the field.
There's a lot of back and forth between Najee and Kaleb Johnson whenever we're here. The only thing I have to say about Kaleb Johnson as it relates to this program, meaning this episode of this program, is we don't know a thing. I'm sorry. We just don't. You can get excited. You can get stoked. You can watch his film. We've all done that. Quentin says Kaleb has way better vision than Najee. Najee's played 5 years in the NFL. Okay. No, he doesn't. I'm not being that guy here. Okay. No, he doesn't, because Kaleb has yet to take a snap in anger. Even in, a camp setting, and the rookie mini camp doesn't count, believe me. Kaleb getting the 1.5 yards, even when hit behind the line of scrimmage, is why I'm super excited. Yes, he did that in minor league football. That's what colleges are. No one likes to say that except me, but it's true. That's minor league football. That's what it is. It's why the NFL doesn't have its own minor leagues. It uses the colleges for that. It's the minors. It's AAA. Okay? No, really. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay. So this kid comes up. Let's see. Because I'll take this the other direction, Chris. Can you imagine? And this does happen from time to time, where the scouts can get it wrong.
Oh, yeah.
But in the other direction, that's when it's fun. Okay. When somebody, I don't know if Jaden Daniels or CJ Stroud, or Stroud's probably a better example, right? Where you just say, whoa, hey, we didn't see that coming. What's that all about? And you see somehow, bang, right away in that camp setting or preseason games, and you go, oh, man, everybody was wrong about this. He fits in the National Football League. Yeah. His skill set might be a better fit for the higher level. Does that make sense? Yeah. If we see that out of Kaleb Johnson in training camp, Chris, can this whole offense, everything that we're talking about, WR2 and everything else, could the Steelers just say, hey, listen, this kid's a star?
I mean, that's why it's a complete game changer, because if when you're talking about ceilings here, I think Kaleb Johnson has a higher ceiling than Jalen Warren. Jalen Warren was undrafted coming out of college, right. And Kaleb Johnson not. I mean, he was a monster at Iowa, and he was a monster running against stacked boxes all the time. But just because you produced at college doesn't mean you're going to produce at the NFL. If production in college were always a teller for who is going to work in the NFL and who's not, then Tim Tebow would have worked out. Vince Young would have worked out. Like, obviously, some guys just their game doesn't translate to what the pro level does, and I think Kaleb Johnson has a certain style that fits not only what the Steelers want to do, but it's also versatile enough that he can succeed at the NFL level. But
it's so direct. I just have to throw that in there. Everything about what you see Kaleb Johnson is you see the and rookie minicamp too. This subject came up a lot. It's run hard, and I mean first step, okay, and then cut. Find that, identify that cut. That's what he is. He's a one cut.
Yep. That's what you want to see in this type of an offense. It is literally 3 steps, make your read, cut on the 5th step. That's the way it's taught when you're talking about running that type of concept on a regular basis. Obviously, you have to have different plays in the playbook. You're not running wide zone every single time. But if that's the cornerstone, that's what everything else is built on, then that you have to be able to do that well. And if you don't have 2 running backs, if you don't have a star running back and you don't have a running back threat or dual threat that can do that on a regular basis, which the Steelers didn't have last year, it's going to be clunky. And that's the best way I can describe the Steelers running game last year, was clunky. It'd be really good at times, and other times it'd just be completely ineffective. And you just can't be the type of offense you want to be if you can't consistently run the football.
There's a lot to like about this kid and what he can bring. There really is. And I don't mean, when I say he hasn't played it down in the NFL, I'm not knocking. I'm giving you a fact. He hasn't. Yeah. If and when he does, there's also the possibility that he could be, something special. There were running backs taken before Le'Veon Bell, were there not? Who were they? There were some good ones too. Wasn't Eddie Lacy?
I think Eddie Lacy was taken first. I don't remember who all was taken in front of him, but
Le'Veon was the best of them.
Oh, 100%. Not even close. Not even close.
Yeah. So you just, and it was known. Yeah. This is the crazy part, that Lev was the best of them, like instantly. Like some guys will just fit in to the NFL. Have I ever shared with you my point guard example? I don't do much basketball. Okay. But like, I've seen this happen before, where a point guard, and coaches in basketball will talk about it. A point guard who is really adept at seeing the whole floor and can really distribute does not show his full capability until he is at the highest level, where he has players who understand what to do with his passes. I know Nikola Jokic is not a point guard, okay? He's actually all positions at the same time. He's a freak and a half, okay?
Yeah, he is.
But part of what makes him and the Nuggets work is that when he does all this stuff, he's got guys running. If he was trying that in college, they wouldn't even know what to do with him.
Yeah.
So sometimes when you bring a player into the NFL, they just end up, this is a better fit for me. This is a better fit for my game.
And it wouldn't surprise me if Najee becomes a beast with the Chargers. Like
why do you say that?
Because Najee needs to run in a more gap-oriented system, and I believe that's what the Chargers want to do. I mean, that's also, a Marion Hampton. I mean, definitely more of a gap runner. He can also run zone too. But if you're just asking, like, here's a gap, hit that gap and run, that's you're not having to make multiple choices there. You're not having to improvise too much. Zone running is all about improvisation. You have to be able to see if it's not there, then knowing where their other options are and being able to improvise and still get yards. I do think I think he's a better fit for the way the Chargers want to run the football than the way the Steelers want to run it.
Our last question for today comes from David, who says, Chris and DK, who was the last number 1 pick the Steelers who made an impact. Was it TJ Watt? I've got a hill to die on here, Chris. As far as becoming like one of the premier players in football, sure, yeah. The last number one pick to make an impact was Broderick Jones. Okay, Broad had the rookie year that he had. I'm not about to discard that. I know that the Steelers aren't, and he had better not be. Okay, there is a lot of talent in this young man. There's a physical frame to him. There's a freakish strength. And I am sorry, I am not of the mindset that just because he doesn't finish plays, he doesn't finish blocks, that there's a lazy bone in his body. Okay, he is a motivated young man. I think he's going to be fine. I don't think it's going to be perfect. You know, especially now he's gone right, left, right, whatever. He's back to left. But they're telling him months in advance, you're the left tackle. Months. So go right ahead and study all the film you want. Work your rear end off. I am not ready to dump on 77. I'm not.
No, I don't think anybody should be. You know, I mean, again, whenever you really look at the context of when Broderick Jones was drafted, he was drafted knowing that the Steelers knew that he was more on the raw side. He was not a polished, finished product. He was not going to just step in and be able to be this pass protector right away and be this elite run blocker right away. He was a good run blocker that needed a lot of work in pass protection. Yeah,
it's real. Denny says he put it on tape. Yeah. It's real. It happened, and it happened over a full season. We never mentioned his name.
Yep.
In his rookie season, we just said, "Oh, yep, first round pick. He's just doing what he's supposed to do."
Yep. So I do think
Dave,
it's
great point, Dave. Sorry, Dave.
Yeah,
just jumps in. He's also still very young. We forget that about some of these draft picks now. I think we're used to a world where everybody came out at age 23 or 24, right? And when you look at the age of some of these guys that are coming out now of college, it's different. Broad is 24 now. He's 24 now. Troy Fautanu is also 24. Dan Moore, who was in the league a long time before getting all that money in Nashville, he's 26.
Yep.
Okay. These guys are starting young. They're starting younger than ever. Broad took a step backward. He did. Maybe they thought there was more in him to be moving him around, and there were some positional needs that he was asked to go and adjust to. You know, with Broderick on the left, will Darnell Washington team up with him? I know that one gets thrown around a lot for obvious reasons, you know, because of their college experience. Darnell's going to be out there. And more often than not, when Darnell's out there, Darnell's going to be charged with blocking. And maybe that's another way to solve that side.
It's possible. It's one of those things that you can do. But I will say nothing will make an offensive coordinator more frustrated than having to handcuff the playbook because one of your 11 guys just can't do his job. In order for plays to be executed, it really does take all 11 guys being able to do their job. If that means you're running wide zone to the left side, that means you've got to rely on your left tackle to shove that edge defender out of the way. That's what. Yeah, that one kind of blew my mind. Dwight said Juju's not even 30.
Juju's 28.
Yeah,
he's been around like forever.
These guys are coming in young, man. They come in
Juju,
young.
I think the Steelers drafted Juju when he was 20.
Yeah, he was really young. He was really young. He was really young coming out of USC for sure.
I think part of what aged Juju in our heads it was the knee. You know, he lost that explosiveness after the first couple of years. You know, when he was part of the NFL 100 commercial and all that stuff, and we thought there was some superstardom.
Still one of my five all-time favorite commercials was that commercial. Phenomenal. Just a great job all around. I love it. Yeah.
In hindsight, though, it's still weird that he was in it.
I know, right?
It really is.
Yeah.
You know, I'm saying that respectfully. He's made it. He's kept his career going in spite of everything, but I certainly didn't go on to become any kind of, you know, football legend or whatever like those other people in that. But then he also had the personality, so.
He did. He had some big plays for that offense, man. He had some big play. He had that one big play in the Jesse James game to get them down inside the 10. You know, it's just he had some big plays for the Steelers offense, man. It's one of those things that you kind of wish would have worked out for him and the team. But yeah, injuries, man. Sometimes all it takes is one injury and you're just not the same person again.
Well, especially to the knees. That's anything that's lower body in football takes one of those milliseconds off of your ability to run straight or to cut or whatever it happens to be.
Cody says it right here too. Prime Juju would be your exact compliment that you would want for DK Metcalf right now. When you're talking about
Juju, the other way, Prime Juju, it might be the other way around.
Oh no, Prime Juju wasn't as good as DK Metcalf. No way.
Okay, just throwing it out there. He made some, as Carol points out here, he made some monster plays.
He did. I'm not denying that whatsoever. But that his type, his skill set would be perfect for what you were looking for. That's a good basis for the type of receiver that you should look for to complement the big guy who can win all the time on the other side, like DK Metcalf.
CJ says AB gave him grief for dropping that pass. Can't remember which game. I mean, it was in New Orleans, and it wasn't a drop pass. It was a fumble.
Yeah.
And he gave him grief literally right in front of me.
Yeah.
I was standing there when it happened in the visiting clubhouse at the clubhouse. This is me for a weekend in baseball locker room.
Yeah.
See what happens when they start running together here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would all take the prime Juju right now. You know, that was a heartbreaker because AB and Ben.
That game was stupid good for the two of them.
You guys ever want to, if you're ever like so hard up for football or whatever, you just would rather, instead of watching highlights and stuff, don't highlight that game. Watch the game. Try to feel that atmosphere, how loud that place is. In the Superdome, the press box is like up by the dome. We're really, really high there. Okay.
Yeah.
But the dome holds, think about it, the sound in there. Okay. Oh my God. That atmosphere. And then to have Ben and AB just, what did AB have in that game? 15 catches, something like that?
Something ridiculous. I have to look
at it. They were all kinds. There was just, New Orleans had no answer for 84. And Ben made sure that they'd continue to have no answer. That to me was one of the better showings, and this is saying something, of AB's career. Okay, because what I think of him as he's the best wide receiver I've ever seen.
Good God in heaven.
And that's the one. That's the one that I would show. It wouldn't be the highlights or anything. I would say this is what he could do to you over a whole game. This was why he insisted he wanted the football all the time, because he could actually take it all the time. Unreal.
Ben was 33 of 50 for 380 yards and 3 touchdowns in that game. Antonio Brown had 14 catches for 185 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Like, we took that for granted. Like all of us did. You too, Chris. Everybody was just like, oh, yeah, of course he did.
Yep.
You know?
This is what I mean. And then Juju on top of that had 11 catches for 115 yards. It's not like Juju had some bad game. He just had a really, really bad moment at the very end where he
TV. No, man. No. Hines Ward was not better than AB. No, okay. Hines had his own niche. He had his own thing. If you want to label him as playing a different type of wide receiver, even a different position, you can do that. Okay.
Very much, yeah.
AB is the best wide receiver in franchise history by a mile. And that's being aware of Lynn Swann and John Stallworth and Louis Lips and a bunch of others. Okay. AB is up here. To me, AB is one of the best who have ever played the game.
That's 100%. I mean, no, seriously, and not one of the Steelers receivers in franchise history can definitively say that. Like, you can't say about any other Steelers receiver that they were the best in the game when they played. Like, as great as Lynn Swann and John Stallworth were in their era, there were still other receivers who were great. Antonio Brown, in the same era as all the other greats who were playing at that same time, you could still make a really good case that Antonio Brown was the best receiver in the NFL. he was phenomenal. Just because of everything that's happened with him off the field down the stretch with his time in Pittsburgh, and then obviously everything that's happened since then, since he left, that puts a stain on it. But that doesn't mean that doesn't take anything away from what he did on the football field. He was ridiculous on the football field. That can't be overshadowed.
Yeah, that's just
Hines was
All
a
right,
different
guys.
talent.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think you want to see him as a different role of the same position, or even a different position if you wanted to label it that. Hines had his own niche. Now, was Hines better at his own niche than others? Sure, of course he was. But when you're just talking about you throwing a blanket over the wide receiver position, sorry. All right, Chris, we're going to do another one of these tomorrow, eh?
Sounds good. Let's do it.
All right.